Have you ever wondered who actually pushes the button on a UN peacekeeping mission? Who gives the final order? Well, it's not just one person. It's a really complex chain of command. So in this explainer, we're going to break down that very structure from the highest levels of diplomacy all the way down the line. Okay, let's dive in.
So where does it all even begin? When a crisis breaks out somewhere in the world, who actually has the power to stand up and say, go? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer reveals the entire top-level architecture of international peace and security. And to get that answer, we've got to start at the very beginning, with the foundational document that gives the United Nations its entire purpose and its power. This slide calls the UN Charter a constitution, and that's actually a really great way to think about it. It was signed back in 1945, right after the absolute devastation of World War II. It's so much more than just a treaty, it's the legal and moral blueprint for the entire organization. It's the ultimate source of legitimacy for every single action the UN takes, especially peacekeeping. Now, the Charter lays out a few core purposes, but for what we're talking about today, that very first one is the key: to maintain international peace and security. Literally everything we're about to discuss, every council, every committee, every department, is designed to serve this one primary goal. Okay, so if the Charter is the rulebook, who are the players on the field? The UN has 6 main organs, but when it comes to peacekeeping, 3 of them are doing all the heavy lifting. And here we can see the overall structure. There are 6 main organs in total, but for our purposes, we're going to zero in on these 3 key players. You've got the Security Council, which we can think of as the executive board, the General Assembly, which is kind of like the global town hall, and the Secretariat, the engine room that actually gets all the work done. Let's start with the most powerful body in the entire UN system when it comes to matters of war and peace, the Security Council. This is the room where the highest stakes decisions are made. According to the UN Charter itself, the Security Council has the lead responsibility for global peace. So when you hear on the news about a UN resolution being passed to address a conflict, it is coming from this room. So how does it actually work? Well, it's made up of 15 members, but here's the deal. 5 of them are permanent, and critically, they hold veto power. That means any one of them can block a resolution. Now, for any peacekeeping mission to even exist, this council has to issue a resolution that contains something called a mandate, and you should think of the mandate as the mission's legal DNA. It defines everything: its purpose, its tasks, even whether it can use force. No mandate from the Security Council, no peacekeeping mission, period. All right, let's shift gears to the next key body, the General Assembly. If the Security Council is that small, powerful executive board, then the General Assembly is the all-inclusive global forum. This is the only UN body where all 193 member states have an equal voice. One country, one vote. Now, while it can't authorize keeping missions itself, it holds a different but just as critical power: the power of the purse. The General Assembly has to approve the budget for every single peacekeeping operation. It's simple: no funding, no mission. It also elects those 10 non-permanent members that sit on the Security Council. So, to just boil it down, the Security Council holds the political and legal authority. It writes the mission's job description and gives it the green light. The General Assembly, on the other hand, holds the financial authority. It decides whether or not to pay for it. They're 2 totally distinct but absolutely essential links in the chain. Okay, so the mission has been authorized by the Security Council, and it's been funded by the General Assembly. But who actually plans it, deploys it, and manages the thousands of people on the ground? Well, that's where the Secretariat comes in. The Secretariat is basically the UN's administrative and operational arm, led by the Secretary General. It's a vast organization, but when it comes to peace and security, its work is really driven by 3 key departments that we need to get our heads around. This slide does a great job breaking down the division of labor. First up, you've got the Department of Peace Operations, or DPO. They provide the political and executive direction specifically for those big blue helmet peacekeeping missions. Next, there's the Department of Operational Support, DOS. Think of them as the massive logistics backbone for all UN field missions, handling everything from food and transport to payroll and IT. And finally, you have the Department of Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, or DPPA. They lead efforts in conflict prevention and mediation, and they also direct something called special political missions, which are typically smaller, non-military missions focused on diplomacy and peacebuilding. So let's just run through that whole flow one more time. It all starts with the authority granted by the UN Charter. The Security Council then uses that authority to issue a specific mandate. After that, the General Assembly provides the funding to make it happen. And finally, the specialized departments within the Secretariat take that mandate and that budget and turn it into a real, functioning operation on the ground.
And that brings our strategic overview to a close. We've seen a system designed in the aftermath of a world war with a really clear chain of command for trying to maintain peace. But the final question we're left with is a pretty big one. As the very nature of conflict changes, how must this 20th century structure evolve to meet the challenges of the 21st?